Hey guys, and welcome back to... I'm not exactly sure. I don't know if this should be a Let's Talk or Share Your Grin. Probably Share Your Grin, because this is us just chatting about an anime and a series that I just finished watching. Actually, we're going to be talking about two, because I have two shows that I don't want to make two videos about and drown you guys out when it comes to my opinions on entertainment. So we are just going to consolidate them into this video. But basically, these are just my glowing recommendations and also just me talking about The Boys and Mob Psycho 100%. Season 2 specifically. But we will be starting with Mob Psycho 100%. Oh, I'm getting warm. Turn my fan. Now, you'll have to forgive me. I may be a little bit old on certain things because I actually finished it around 2 weeks ago on both of these. I think they were fantastic, but I didn't want to quickly jump on it because I was still kind of taking it in. And the show that really is that in a nutshell is Mob Psycho 100%. Let's start with that. Like I said, we would be doing that. I took a drink of water in the break, so I didn't even know where I was. Anyways, the point being is I love this series to pieces. Mob Psycho 100%. It's maybe even more than One Punch Man at this point. And for those guys who do not know what it's about, essentially it's the premise that there is this kid in the world. He's in high school and he's going to school in, I think, Japan. And he has unrealistic telekinesis powers. He can like level up. He probably could destroy the planet. Like he's on that level of like, what? What? And the whole premise of season 1, which is my favorite thing ever, was that it was trying to talk about there's an idea that because you have this advantage in life, that benefits you. And Mob Psycho kind of goes against that, saying it doesn't matter if the thing that you were gifted does not align with what you want in life. So the idea is, say, at least the way I took it, by the way, this is all my idea. It's not like I haven't read a wiki page on what the hell happened or whatnot, but this is what I think it means. Say if you take a person that was born with amazing height, incredible athletic ability, great judgment when it comes to sports and whatnot, you would be like, oh, this dude has an unrealistic advantage when it comes to everything. Everything sports related, almost, especially basketball and the like. So you'd be like, oh, this guy it's so unfair that this person has this gain. It's almost like he's superhuman compared to me, that kind of idea. But what if the person that was given all of those innate traits, abilities, advantages had no interest in pursuing that sports? Maybe he really loved computers and technology, but maybe didn't even have the brain for it. Maybe it was really hard for him to gain knowledge in that field. Well, he'd be at a massive disadvantage in that case. Now you could say, well, you should always just go with the thing that you're talented in, but what if you truly don't like the thing that you're talented in? Like that thing that would validate those talents, So, Mob Psycho does this on a grander scale to where Mob is basically the most useless human being on the planet in terms of just innate advantage or innate skill. So he's terrible at communicating. He has incredible anxiety about most things. He's also very weak, and it doesn't really seem like he can get stronger, it seems. Well, actually, that's not true. In season 2, they kind of do a good job of saying he's improved, but it's very minuscule, even though he's been trying his hardest. Anyways, he's also very bad at school. He's not very talented at anything. But the one thing that he does have is this amazing talent, which is his unrealistic psychic ability, which is, again, his ability to basically, like, if he wanted to, he could rule the world. And in season 2, they really hammer that home. But his like mentor is his like con artist mentor, helps him, like, puts him on the right path, it seems, throughout the entire series. And it's weird because the contrast in season 1 was Mob has zero talents within the practical world, but he has these psychic powers that could give him anything he wants, but he doesn't want to take using his psychic powers, right? Because he's a good person. But then his brother has every practical advantage, meaning he's very smart, he's charming, he's good looking, he's all of these things, but he doesn't have psychic powers. And of course, his brother envies the ever-living hell out of his brother because he wants these psychic powers. And Mob doesn't envy his brother, he's because he's the older brother. Mob is like the most genuine, sweet human being in any of the shows I watch, really, at least to me. That's also because he's a real person. And that's something that happened in season 2 that I really liked. And I think I was trying to talk about this, but we weave some other way. But one of the things with Mob Psycho, and it's one of the reasons why it's one of my favorite shows, is that it's the most missable show in terms of the ideas that it's trying to present show. So what I mean by that is you'll watch it the first go round. Like I watched season 1 and was like, okay. And then I heard someone on YouTube talk about what the underlying things were. And then I watched it again with that kind of pretext, and I was like, oh my god, I get it all now. It all makes sense. This is like a representation for this. This is why Mob is doing this. This is why the author keeps like showing him in the fitness club and how he's like relentlessly pushing towards his goals. Because that was kind of the arc of season 1, is Mob coming to the realization of, okay, well, I don't want to use my psychic powers for bad things, and all the things that I want, I can't really get them with my psychic powers, so I gotta nut up and push forward. And then he starts exercising, he starts trying to do better at school and all these things. He tries to improve himself even though everyone around him's like, dude, you could rule the world, like you could easily rule the world. But instead you're like exercising, because for Mob, he wants to be strong because he wants to impress this girl or whatever. But even still, it's that idea that Mob is born with his insane power, but for him, it doesn't matter. He could be born without the power and he'd probably be happier about it. But yeah, that's the general gist of season 1, and that's the whole basis. And honestly, this is more just talking about season 1, but season 1 of Mob Psycho 100%. The ending of that show to me was the most confusing, but I enjoyed it a lot. And this is kind of a spoiler, but it's been out for a while, and I don't think it's that much of a spoiler. But in the end of season 1, Mob is fought against the like impossible odds. By the way, the whole premise of the show, I should just tell you, is like the background premise is it's called Mob 100%. Because Mob's psychic powers get massively amplified by him showing any emotion. So that's why he's very deadened and like plain faced, because if he shows any emotion, his psychic powers go crazy. So he in season 1, he keeps getting put in situations in which he gets like 50% over his capacity, 70% over his capacity. At the end of every episode, you get to see what percentage he's at. So inevitably, it culminates in him blowing up. And you truly being able to see his destructive, crazy power, right? It's awesome. It's great. But back to the last part, the ending to season 1. Again, Mob has fought with impossible odds, and he's fought with the realization that he has to kind of become the enemy and use his psychic powers for like violence, essentially, which he doesn't like to do. He's not a very violent person. So he's getting ready to do it, and then his like really weird, slightly manipulative sensei-like character comes forward and says these words that are like seared into my brain as being like the most nice and just good things to hear. But what do you call it? He basically yells at Mob and tells him that it's okay to run away. And in the entire series and all the anime that I've watched and all the weird story tropes that I've seen, it's always like, you have this immense power, you are obligated to fight, you are obligated to be the hero, you have to fight, because if you don't fight, no one else will survive, and all these things. And that's like a very human, weird thing, you know, because generally I think most people just want to live. Most people want to see another day. They want to experience love, joy, and happiness again and again and again. So for someone to say that you have to put your life on the line because of anything is quite ridiculous, you know. And it's like, it kind of, in anime and all of these, just storytelling in general, you're always fed this line of, there's a moment in time where you either run away or you fight. You know, the term fight or flight, it's kind of that same thing. It's that exact thing, fight or flight. Well, constantly in storytelling, we see the fight. We see the ability for someone to, for no apparent reason, just grind forward and push whatever's in front of him to dust. But very rarely do we ever have that other aspect of our brain ticked, where it's like, hey, if you want to, it's not wrong to want to survive. It's not wrong to want to live. It's not wrong to feel like this is unfair to you, you know? It is wrong to let either of these consume you, I think. It's wrong to think that nothing is your responsibility and everything means nothing. It's also wrong to think that everything is your fault and you have to do everything in your life, you know? So I get both sides, but anyways, that was such a nice, like, weird misdirect by the author, because again, you're expecting Mob to go pop off, but instead they find another way to resolve everything, and it's quite good. It's not in a like, let's be friends kind of mentality, although kind of. Anyways, point being is that's Mob Psycho in general. So season 2, what that jumps into, and honestly, I feel like I kind of, well, I don't know. I kind of feel like I maybe enjoy the moral things that exist within season 1 more, just because it kind of plays into the idea that even if you're born special, that doesn't mean you're born with an advantage, because that speciality may not be what you want to do. But in season 2, and again, I think I have to watch it again to get what exactly it's trying to say, which will be in probably a year or so, because I want to take a break and all these things. But the general like feeling for season 2 is more a culmination into a battle, into a giant battle. And throughout the entire course of season 1 or season 2, sorry, we're seeing that Mob is coming to the realization of other things. Like, there's one arc in particular which I actually loved, and it's the idea that, well, first of all, in the beginning it kind of shows that Mob is alone, and it really shows that Reagan, that his like master person, that he's alone in the world. Like, no one else has the burden of knowing how unbelievably strong he is. So whenever there's like a cataclysm, he could, in the back of his head, he's like, well, I could do something about it. But then again, should he? Does he have to? You know, why? What is it? Does he want to do it, or is it because he feels like he has to, or whatever, right? Anyways, there's one moment in season 2 which I was like, oh, okay, we're getting back to that weird philosophical kind of thing, which I really like in the show. And in the show, it's amazing because there's this other, like, a super popular psychic who actually became bad. I don't want to spoil anything, but he's a very bad psychic. And he actually ended up cursing his own soul, basically, so that when he died, he would become a powerful spirit. It's the whole thing. Anyways, Mob encounters him, and when he encounters him, the spirit is all about trying to convince Mob that there is so much despair, hatred, and like vile things in the world, that how can you fight? How can you know, how are you the way that you are? And it's not done through the eyes of like, oh, like how can I be like you? No, it's done through the guise of him being like, you would be a monster, like you would be disgusting if things happened to you that made you be this way. And it's a testament to that old thing that, or at least I heard it when I was in school, but it's, if you were born in a different situation, in a different place on the world, with different parents, with different economical situations around you, would you be the same person you are today? And it's a very uncomfortable question, because the mechanical brain says, no, I would be whatever that world would make me. But then the other part of you is like, yeah, but I haven't had the easiest time either, and I've been that. But then maybe that plays into that as well, you know, the fact that you would become a different way if you experience different things. But yeah, I always felt like, at least with me, that there's these two sides of the coin, where I would definitely think I would be different, but part of me really hopes that I would still be me, you know, like that maybe the idea of the soul or something can weather the storm, so to speak. But anyways, that's a very weird perception. I don't think that's what the reality of the situation would be. Anyways, this guy puts Mob through the ringer in like a psychic trip, essentially, where he just is hammering a Mob to utter shit, where he's like, you don't have any psychic powers, you have nothing. And there are these people that are just evil, like vile, disgusting people that are just bullies times 10, you know, and just everything around you is just malice, hatred, and no one gives a shit, and you're just like a blip on the map. It's just like insanely high despair level shit. It's actually one of my favorite episodes because, again, it's very honest and very real. And in that episode, Mob becomes bad. Mob becomes like this nice, sweet kid that we're always used to seeing, becomes angry, hateful, willing to hurt people, the whole 9 yards. And they do it in a way that's very like, again, because this guy is trying to show Mob that I can make you what I want to make you. If I control the puppet strings of life, I can throw you to be a monster. And yeah, he ends up like, just these horrible people are basically beating the shit out of him to like a pulp. And the guy basically finally gives him back his psychic powers to be like, okay, now that you're brimming with anger, here, what would you do with this power now? And Mob is like about to just end these people, and then finally, Dinklebot, what is it called, Dinkle? It's like his little tiny spirit, his green spirit thing. he pops in and he's like, hey, like, you know, snap out of it. What's going on? And it kind of is nice because it's the idea that you can face immense disgusting despair, but as long as you have like a person that's you're close with and that you can vent to and that knows you, the real you, they can pull you back from that brink, it seems. But it never shied away from the fact that and I think further down the line, the dude actually asks Mob like, what are you doing? You would be this monster. And then Mob says, yes, I would. Like, I'm only the reason, I'm only the way that I am because of the people around me, because of the lessons I learned, and because of the life that I didn't have to live, which was yours. And he's like, that's honest. Like, I would not be the person that I am today if I didn't have those things around me. And it kind of makes you value your friends, your family, your supportive things around you, or just the things you enjoy that don't make you a monster, you know? So it's things like that throughout the entire course of season 2 that they're good, but it's not like it's very section to episode by episode. At least I think. Again, maybe I'll watch a video where a person's like, "Here's me explaining the subliminal message behind Mob Psycho 100%." I do think though, unlike season 1, season 2 is very much more fan service oriented, and it's all like paying off what happened in season 1, 2, and 3, etc. Or sorry, 1 and 2, or the 1 and the beginning of 2. For instance, there's a scene that's really awesome. Mob's in this body improvement club, and he's working his hardest all the time. And he passes out like 3 times a day. Like, it's a whole thing. But he has these like super supportive bro dudes with him that are like all in, and they love having him around because he just keeps going. And they really like put that at the forefront when this other like telekinesis person is like crushing, trying to stomp on Mob's head. And then one of the Goliaths, like the super buff leader of the fitness club that he's in, he like hovers over Mob, and he's getting like crushed underneath him, basically holding the pressure off. But he starts very, very obviously explaining what's happening. But he's explaining that the only reason why he's doing this is because everyone in the club respects Mob so much because, again, he has like no inherent advantage. But yet he works harder than anybody to improve, and that's what the entire club is. It's the Body Improvement Club. And it's just that moment where, and again, it plays to another thing that I really like, which is the idea that something small, something you might think is insignificant in the moment matters, and maybe it will matter to you in the future, or maybe it'll matter immensely to someone else in the future as well, or just that. And that's one of those things where it's kind of like the idea that throughout the series, you kind of get an idea that the Body Improvement Club is just really supportive, but in that moment, you realize that this dude is like full on willing to die for Mob because he respects what he is that much, and what he's done for the group and etc. that much. And all he's really done is just try his hardest and push through every kind of adversity that he's been faced with. So that's a really, really nice thing that they kind of make that come to a peak, you know? But yeah, throughout the entire season 1 and 2, you get an idea that they're kind of, they like Mob and they're his friends, but you don't get to that extent. You don't get that they're like, at least this guy is willing to die for his friend because he appreciates who he is so much, you know? I said, that is dope. Anyways, I don't want to spoil anything, but yeah, season 2 ends in like a very climactic kind of ultimate battle, which is awesome. But it does feel like, yeah, sorry, I was just thinking about it because there's so many like weird things that happen in the end of season 2 that a part of me is like, yeah, I gotta watch that again because I feel like I'm missing something, you know? Like, I bet there's some sort of overarching thing that if I just knew, it would make everything flow together more. Like maybe Mob, the whole idea is that it's his ability to save people. Okay, I'm just kind of dancing all over the place at this point. Mob Psycho season 2 is absolutely lovely. I don't know if we'll be getting a season 2 though. I've heard nothing really, or sorry, season 3. I have heard nothing really about it, although it's super popular. I think season 2 was even more popular, so yeah, because it had a lot more battle scenes and whatnot. I will say that though, that's the only thing that's quite a big bummer, is that I personally find the art style charming, but whenever I try to suggest this anime to anyone who is not like thoroughly, who has been watching anime for a long time, the art style is too much for some people, because it's like, you know how Saitama in One Punch Man gets all weird and like clippy, like very weirdly drawn. because it's like part of the original art style or whatever. That's like Mob Psycho all the time. Like all the time. Super weird, kind of like jarring a little bit, but charming if you can get past it. Yeah. Anyways, let's quickly talk about The Boys. Not the meme The Boys, but something entirely different. Well, I guess it's kind of similar because they're weird. Like, oh my god, it's actually, no, it's very similar. Yeah, because the boy meme, like hanging out with the boys meme, is actually supervillains, and The Boys is basically being on the supervillains side because the superheroes are so shitty in the world. Now you guys might be like, well, Grin, what are you talking about? Well, my friend, there is a show on Amazon Prime, or whatever that thing is called, that other like Netflix model thing, called The Boys. And the idea is, well, what if in like the, not Marvel universe, but the Superman, Wonder Woman kind of universe, like the Justice League, what if that was real, like we made that live action in a real world, but all of the heroes were particularly awful and terrible and like murderers and shit. And it's kind of like, and it's, I will say, a big warning to anyone who is gonna watch this show. It will mess up the idea of superheroes for you a little bit, because we always like fantasize about like pure human beings, and if you had powers, people would save people, but most likely people would become horrible monsters of people. And yeah, and that's what the show is. It kind of like, it takes the wind out of the sail of like, if we were to have superheroes in our world, how horrible it probably would be, in the sense that like, and also, by the way, all of the characters like Superman, Wonder Woman, etc., they're all like offshoot versions of each other. So like a Superman is Outlander, that's what his name is, has all the same powers basically. Indestructible, all those things. By the way, the whole premise of the show is that we're following this main character and his, to give you an idea, because this is kind of happens in the first 10 minutes, he's talking to the love of his life. They're talking about moving in together. She steps on the sidewalk to get in the car or whatever, and they're talking, they're lovey-dovey, they're excited for the future, and wham, boom, she gets fucking obliterated immediately. like put 1,000 pieces, just obliterated, because the guy who plays the Flash, which I forget what his name is, but he's like coked up on something and just runs through her and just obliterates her, and that's kind of the premise. We're following this guy who has his girlfriend like just eviscerated in front of him, and he's like a tech guy, and then the people who represent the Flash basically, they come to him with an NDA. So that's the world we're living in, where like bitches die all the time, and there's NDAs being signed, and there's corporations that are building up superheroes to be this great thing, and we're following this dude who had this horrible thing done to him, and we're also following the superheroes and like how horrible they are. There's also this dude who can go invisible, who's like a total creepo. It's like he's a, you know, a lot of people say the best or a good power would be invisibility, because you could like creep on people, like go into like the girls, whatever, you know. That's like this guy incarnate. He's like a creepy, perverted freak, you know. Anyways, just cycling through things, a couple episodes. Basically, the main character meets this guy who's like, I'm gonna help you get revenge. Then he pulls on some other people, and there's like 4 people. One of the guys is a Frenchman that specializes in killing soups, which is this, basically, a lot of the superheroes have like unpenetrable armor or unpenetrable skin, virtually making them invincible. And then there's these superheroes, which are called the 7, which is like Wonder Woman, Superman, Flash, Aquaman, and etc. By the way, Aquaman gets shit on all the time in the show, because everyone always gave Aquaman so much shit in the comics because he's just trash. So then the creator basically mimicked that in the thing, and it's great. He's also a freak. He's also like a really gross sexual harassment type deal thing. Anyways, and then there's this like tough cop that comes along too. So basically, yeah, there's basically just a group of like 4 good villains. But the reason why I say villains is because they're trying to kill superheroes, or at least bring justice to them, because they're protected by this like super conglomerate that's all about like their image, and like they all have PR cards they read from, and it's super shitty. and it's a whole thing. The world itself is just incredibly interesting. But again, when I finished the show, and I binge watched this show is very digestible, even though it's an hour an episode, but it just does put along, at least to me. But it does kind of, I don't know, it kind of breaks the idea of what a superhero is, you know, like the pure, kind-hearted, kind of like, you know what, I've been given these gifts, and I should do well with them. It destroys all that, and it shows that a lot of these superheroes are just awful people, like actual people. Like if you were given the ability to go invisible, you'd probably do some horrible shit. If you were given the ability to basically be a god, you'd probably maybe have a god complex, like, and who knows. And then it's hyper intensified with the main character, Outlander, which is Superman. And it is kind of spoilers, but it's basically, I don't want to spoil it. Yeah, but he had a horrible childhood, and it kind of shines a light on, like, okay, well, you have this person that was given ungodly power who happened to have a terrible childhood. Not a good combination. It's a very fucking poor thing. Because then there is also this other girl who's given a very loving, good childhood who happens to be an actual, genuine, good, kind person, you know? And it's funny because it almost seems like Generation 2 is a lot more better because they've been like, they've digested what the idea of superheroes are, whereas these other people are like human beings that just were trying to pretend to be superheroes kind of thing. But the image sold was what the previous generation or the next generation kind of absorbs and becomes, it seems. But yes, ladies and gentlemen, I don't want to spoil too many things about The Boys, because The Boys is actually fairly there's some ups and downs, some like things happen I can't really talk too much about, but all I can say is the ending of that show, I'm interested to see what happens next kind of deal. I'm like, all right. I don't know. Basically, the one girl at the very end, it didn't exactly look like she's seen someone who did something that horrible to her, you know? Yeah, she seemed like she was like, oh, it's you, not like, uh-oh, I should run kind of deal, you know? So it'll be weird and interesting to see what's going on in season 2, which they have greenlit season 2. It's already being filmed, so The Boys season 2 is happening. And I would highly suggest it. It's like a gritty look on superheroes, and it's a lot of like, oh no, why this? But you're also rooting for the villains, or at least the villains in the context of the world. Anyways, also one more quick thing to add. The one thing I really do hope, there's two things. One of the things is the main character. He has this like anxiety kind of like thing going on in his head, but I'm hoping it's not anxiety, and I'm hoping he's a soup. just a side thing, probably not going to happen, but I think it would be dope if the main character or the main protagonist that we're watching, it does happen to have some sort of super power abilities, because that would just be really nice. Although I think that's the whole premise, is that like it is literally common man versus gods, but these common men are like one is specialized in killing superheroes, so he specializes in finding ways to penetrate unpenetrable skin, ways to kill anything, right? Anybody. So they kind of go at it like that. But the other thing I really hope is the show kind of, I really hope there's a break from the Outlander kind of story arc, and we get back to them taking down superheroes. So like if there's a superhero that's super unjust and terrible, them actually getting him, trying to find a way to kill him, killing him, moving on, or finding a way to destroy him, like maybe show the atrocities that he has actually done and hold him accountable, because that's what the whole premise of The Boys, at least from my understanding, is. It's the idea that there's this group of people, 4 normal humans, hopefully one is not so normal, but it's them taking down these superhero monoliths that are corrupt and evil. I really hope that happens more in season 2, because it only kind of happened in the first 3 episodes of season 1, and then it kind of goes to like this grander arc. It's about like putting superheroes in the military, and that would be a big problem because it would just, everyone would get eviscerated, you know? Yeah. Anywho, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much for hearing me rant and rave about the shows that I've been watching and that I've been tremendously enjoying. I would massively suggest Mob Psycho 100%, as well as The Boys. Yes, The Boys is on again, Amazon Prime weirdness. I don't know what it's called exactly, but yes. Thank you so much for your time. Subscribe button, yes, over here, and then up there somewhere, or over further that way. Sorry. Thank you so much for your time, and goodbye.